interview is being conducted for The Journey, Personal Testimonies of Africans Living and Working in Scotland. This is an oral history project. My name is Dr. Sue Morrison, and the respondent is...
My name is Josephine Oboh MacLeod, and some people call me Chief Joe.
Thank you very much. This is June 2022, and the interview is taking place in Mulgai at Josephine Studio.
Yes, this is John Charity Art and Culture Centre, and we are at 26A Station Road, Mulgai.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed for the project, Josephine.
Thank you.
May I ask you just your year of birth?
I was born in 1965.
Thank you very much. And where were you born?
I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, but by heritage, I'm known to come from Edo State, Esanland in Edo State, Nigeria, because that's where my father and my mother comes from.
Thank you very much. Could you tell me a bit about your early life in Africa?
Well, I think I was very privileged to have a very happy childhood. I had a lovely mother who was an excellent cook and very industrious woman. Chief Aime Baluye, her English name is Comfort, so they call her Chief Comfort Aime Baluye Oboh. And my very amiable father, who was really kind, a very good personality, quiet, and a thinker, someone that likes to read books. And he actually encouraged us children, and I grew up with him encouraging the girls just equally as the boys. In those days, there were a lot of, let's say, chauvinism against women, but my father wasn't like that towards my mom. My mom was allowed to work and contribute to the household. My father also encouraged us girls to go to school just like the boys, and he gave us equivalent education for those that could want to, read up to whatever level you wanted. So he put us in the same schools like the boys, which some of the parents from my area in those days didn't do, because they wanted to give boys more, because they felt that the girls, when you get married, you are lost. So to them, that investment is not worth it. But my father didn't see it that way. My father felt that the boys and the girls should be brought up together. I was talking about my father. His name is Chief Major Humphrey Etafo Oboh. And he was an accountant and eventually joined the Nigerian Army and became a major and paymaster to General Gowon during the Gowon era in Nigeria. He was seconded to the military as a civil servant. He was in the civil service and then was seconded during the Biafran War. And that's how he joined the army. So I was born in Lagos, but we had a very, very strong relationship with my parents' village. My dad was from a place called Ugboha in Esanland in Edo State, close to Benin City, where all the Bronx come from. And my mother is from a kingdom called Emu Kingdom in Esanland in Edo State. But Nigeria, West Africa. So, but their story started because they loved themselves. Both of them got married against parental wanting them to get married, because my dad was from a poorer family than my mother. So at one time there were issues about them getting married, but my mother insisted this was who she loved and she's going to marry him. So they got married and then they moved from the village for my father to look for work, because my father at that time was studying. At the same time, he was doing all type of odd jobs to make ends meet. And this young family moved from the village. They traveled to some western states in Nigeria. My father became a teacher. So that his education he completed when he got to Lagos. He then started working for the civil service, and my mother became a market woman because she came from the farming area. So she was very good with how to present food. And she knew how to even prepare all the food. She had a mini farm in the house, so she's able to even bring things from the village and present them properly for sale. And she became into Oshodi market in those days, which was a very tough thing for a woman to do, coming from our side of the world to Lagos, which was a very big city. So my father then joined the civil service. He became an accountant, one of the first accountants in Eastern. And then after then, we were all growing up. They started having us. I was born in 1965. I had two brothers before, and then my sister Mabel. Jude was my brother next to Mabel. Then there was Gilbert, who was the oldest. But my dad had a child before, and my mother had a child before. So my mother had Rose, and then my father had a boy called Godwin. So we were becoming a big family. My background, we're becoming a big family at that time. After I was born, they had more children, and the total from my mom to my dad was 10 children. And apart from that 10 children, they adopted half of the village. So we had half of the village roaming in and out of our house. There was always cooking going on, dancing, art. It was actually a very colorful, everybody smiling, happy, gisting. I can even remember they will bring things like the melon seed from the village. It becomes like a social thing. They all gather around to break the melons, and everybody's gisting, gossiping. They are now sometimes giving us children storytelling, or they start singing among themselves. So that was my biggest influence for culture. So I started looking at around me, and at that time I didn't know how blessed I was. But I used to be honest, not really like too many people in the house. I wanted my dad to myself. I wanted my mommy to myself. And I didn't quite understand why are all these people here. But my mom always tried to explain it that this is an extension of family, and they all call everybody brother, and we have to call everybody uncle, auntie. And these are not their direct just uncles and auntie who also came, but these were extended families. So I grew up with all that, but still it was a very happy home. There was a lot of happiness, a lot of play. We were allowed to role play. My father would buy toys for us. I remember he bought me a bicycle, a chopper bicycle, and there was a car. In those days, I had pedals. I don't know where he got one of his friends who went to Europe. So they brought this car in, and he bought it for myself, one for me, one for my sister. And, and people thought he was spoiling us, the girls. But I love the spoiling. I love the pampering. And I think because of that, till today, I miss him dearly. And I have very good memories of his smiles, the happiness he created in the house. And I'll never forget that. But my mom was more of the disciplinarian. And I also love that strong hand, because without her, I wouldn't be where I am. During tough times, I tell myself, what would my mom have said? But she also loved dancing. I'm not a good dancer myself, but all my sisters are. But she loved art, and she supported music, artists, and all that. And from her, I took that idea of life cannot be complete if you don't have other aspect to you. No matter how intellectual you are, you have to also add other aspect that makes you a whole person. So I got that from my parents. So my upbringing with my sisters, we were 10, as I said. We had eventually we had 4 boys and 6 girls, and all the girls, they are all doing well. I have my older sister Mabel. I have my 2 younger brothers alive now, and John and Peter, and then we have the other sisters, Rita, Henrietta, Pauline and Angela. Henrietta and Angela, they live in Norway. My sister Mabel travel around the world, including Scotland. And then my other sister is in Nigeria, Rita, and another one has migrated to America, that's Pauline. So we have an international family, and I think without my parents' happiness, it will not be complete. So I was privileged to have had that upbringing, and it wasn't also, they tried their best. My mom eventually started making money. And because of that, we also had a very good, luxurious living. We never suffered for food. My mom was an excellent cook, and she displayed dexterity I will never display myself in the kitchen. But yeah, I appreciate that upbringing, and that's why I believe that to whom much is given, much is expected. So I have to give back to people because of so much has been given to me.
you, Josephine. You're called Chief Joe for a very good reason. Would you explain that, please?
Yeah, I'm called Chief Joe because I was given a traditional chieftaincy title from Emu Kingdom. That's my mother's kingdom in Esanland, Edo State, which was eventually recognized by the Edo State government. So they gave me what we call a certified chief. And that is not hereditary this time. It was given to me because of they felt I have contributed a lot to the community, and they wanted to honor me with, they said two things: one, the traditional title, and two, an elder title, which allows me to have meetings with the oldest people, which for us is the ones that make the key decision within the community. So I am allowed to sit with them at this moment in Emu Kingdom. Anytime that they have a meeting, I am allowed to sit either with the women or sit with the men, or have a joint meeting. I'm allowed as somebody not to the elder age yet, just because they felt that I have given back, and also my parents and my grandparents, and I think the heritage had always given back. So they wanted to give something back to our lineage. So that's why I got the chieftaincy. But then years later, I got another chieftaincy from the families in Lagos State, in the Lekki area, Elegushi. So the king of Elegushi, through arts and culture, icon Nike Okundaye, she recommended me for the chieftaincy, and I got another chieftaincy, which is a honorary chieftaincy for my arts and culture contribution, which they call Atayeshi. Atayeshi means somebody that does good for the nation. And then the Adolo I got in Emu is almost the same thing, which is a repairer, somebody that repairs. But with the traditional Adolo title, you still have another role of protecting the kingdom. So if there are problems and issues, it's for you to raise those issues and problems to the court of chiefs and then to the community, and try to get suggestions from the community as to how do you all solve it. And if it's not, you are not able to solve it, you can bring it out to the open, and then you can then make decisions how you fight against what the problem is. So that's the traditional title. So that's how I got my titles.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would you explain your contribution to art and culture in Africa?
Yeah, I remember I started my journey in the arts at a very young age. I wanted from the beginning to just be a painter, and then daydreaming a lot about things. I happen not to be a good dancer or singer, but I love to watch people sing and dance. And sometimes I marvel at the dexterity of movement and fluidity and the colors people wear. So I was actually a quiet child when I was growing up. I was a bit shy. So I used to sit and watch a lot and absorb a lot. So at a young age, I remember telling my mom to pose with her babies. So sometimes she'll be breastfeeding them, and I'll say, "Can you pose? Let me sketch them." And she used to encourage me until when I was getting older, she was going, "You are going to be a businesswoman." So I'm going, "No, I'm going to be an artist." And this discourse went on, and at some point, I knew that my father had a lot of sculptures and paintings. And I remember even when my mom was a market woman, they used to braid our hair and they plait it with thread. And they put it in different shapes. So some of them they call pineapple, some of them they call basket, and they make lines on your head like a basket. And she would get the photographer. Then she didn't have much money, but she was keen about photographer taking pictures of the children. So I can remember posing in the marketplace in different poses. And all this fascinated me. And eventually, as I grew up, I felt, well, if you don't want me to be an artist full-fledged, then what I need to do with you, Mom, you give me the money to start buying art if I work for you or do your apprenticeship, because they got us into doing things very early, cooking before we were 12. We were already in the kitchen. My mom had servants and relatives, but she particularly felt that her girls particularly will learn the skills, and the tradition must be passed down. But she did pass down a lot of tradition to my sisters and myself. And I think the art bit that then started early at the age of 16, while I was still apprenticing my mum. I felt, understudying this woman, but I want to buy art, I want to sell art. So I started buying and selling art. And occasionally I would dabble into maybe do a little watercolor painting here and there. But actually, training to paint properly did not come till later in my life. I did my hospitality management studies in America, and then got married. I had a failed marriage, and it was a very down point of my life. At that time, just before my marriage failed, my father had died of cancer. He had myeloma. So he was in his 50s. So everything went wrong. Before my father died, my older brother in America had been murdered. So before then, my uncles have all dropped dead, few of them, and my father's sisters. So a lot of things went wrong at a certain time of my life, which was a down point. That was what I was saying. Okay, what will I do now? I first said, well, before you do a full-fledged art, go and finish your studies as your father wanted you to do your master's. Honor him. So I went back to school. So I went to University of Surrey and did my master's in business administration. Then after I did that, I wanted to set up a business, and I said, well, whatever business I set up is going to be art related. So by this time, I was dating the man I married now, the Scottish gentleman, Norman MacLeod, and I gave him the idea that, yes, I want to combine my hospitality training, which is also hospitality business, was what my mom eventually used her food knowledge to go get into. She started with a restaurant, selling in the market food. Then from there, she started making food and selling in the market. Then eventually, she started a restaurant. Then she started a second restaurant. Then she wanted to move up class. Then she started having rooms. And eventually, she had one of the biggest private hotels in area in Olodiapapa, which is still existing to today. For a woman who had come from the village with nothing, she had done a lot, and she had other assets of buildings she supervised by herself. And she didn't have any degree. She didn't have any schooling of Western. She was totally traditionally trained. So she gave me a lot of inspiration. So after my master's, I started this hotel, which we call the Cacophony Art Hotel, which was one of the first art hotels in Nigeria. And it kicked off very well. I had some multinational companies like Total take it on for block booking for quite a few years. And from there, I started selling more of my art to more upper market prices, and also doing up people's offices with artworks and doing up big spaces. And that was my journey into art. So when we got married, Norman and Norman made it clear from the beginning that he definitely would like to go back to his lovely country called Scotland. So I had to think about it then, but I said, why not? So I would love to go to Scotland because I had visited with him to see his parents here. So when we now got the hotel going to close down because we are going to travel to Scotland permanently, then I started thinking to myself, what will you do when you get to Scotland? Do you want to do the hotel? No, it will be more difficult. So I now said, okay, I'm going to study art. So I'll study art, I'll study design, I'll take up photography and all those parts that I always wanted to do. So I'll do it, and eventually I'll set up a charity which I will use this art, design and all that and see ways that I can use it to help others. Because I find that when I'm painting and doing things that is creative, I find it extremely relaxing, and it helps me to overcome all my anxieties and keep my depressions at bay. So I felt, well, I could use this also to help people. So that started my idea, and that started my journey. So I went to London Art College, took a correspondence course, and eventually had a good relationship with my tutor. So I was taking occasional private lessons from him in London. I come to England, and Alan Didman, and I was quite impressed with how much he instilled into me. And at the same time, I felt to be accepted in Nigeria as an artist, I have to do my time. So I decided I will do apprenticeship with one of the biggest studios. So for 2 years, I was at the Universal Studios of Art. Most of the artists here is a consortium of over almost 30 very, very talented artists. So I was very fortunate that they accepted me, and that I learned to paint the traditional way. I learned to do sculpting from them, and I also learned to find out the very difficult life of artists. For them, it was not an enabling environment, but they were happy. A lot of them most of the time give you a smile, and I know they don't have anything to eat. And I just can't believe that me that have a lot to eat and I'm with a long face. So I force myself to smile. So I go, see, look at around you. Look at these people. They are welcoming you with a big smile. And some of them have not eaten, and here you are with everything going for you, a big fancy car. Then I had somebody driving me. I had a steward in the house. I had a lot going for me, and yet I have a long face. So it forces me to smile. And I was also impressed about the colors. The use of beautiful, vibrant colors put together, and it works. So all that started my journey into, okay, let me appreciate what I love more, and let me understand how it's done. So I asked a lot of questions. So I know now, how is pastel drawing? How is it started? How do you do watercolor properly that will last a lifetime? What pigments are used? Because there was a challenge in Africa in those days that we used only natural pigments, and that made it fade. We have a lot of sun. So if we're using natural pigments, we have to find a way to protect it. We never knew that. So we were going, okay, it faded, okay, we paint a new one. But we forgot that the future generations will want to see what we painted, and we're also extremely secretive. So we're trying to break that secretive behavior of our ancestors that have allowed us to lose so much knowledge that we were not able to pass down. Even my mom, she was from a medicinal family, and a lot of recipes in her head. When you ask her what is it, she just passes. No, it's just you mix that. But you don't explain to me exactly what do I mix, But what we know, my sister and I and my brothers, some of them, is that even the soup we eat, there are certain ones that we use if you feel that you're going to be having indigestion. So we have what they call preventative method. That was how it was done. Now that I'm older and I've traveled the world, and I start understanding, okay, that was why once a week there must be a soup called bitter leaf soup. They call it black soup, that is cooked with things like basil, and the equivalent, and mint equivalent, and it's a mixture that you must eat, or garden egg, and they make that so that you don't get indigestion. So, but we never knew that was why. We just said, oh, this soup again, But it was, now that we now are looking at things from behind, I'm going, okay, I'm beginning to understand. But they themselves were only working on oral history. They are not doing what we are doing now. That's why this particular exercise is very important, and I'm going to thank the National Museums and Galleries Scotland for the funding to enable us to do this, because I think it's very, very important to record these things that had happened so that the future generation can have it. Just as I say, my parents gave us a lot of oral history, but a lot were lost. I wished a camera like this had gone on my mother, and particularly my father, who saw things from a very traditional point of view, but was extremely knowledgeable in Western readings, because he was a bookworm. He even set up a school eventually for teaching, while my mother's family were like, no, we only do tradition, and it was a mistake too, because life, by the time the father realized that it shouldn't be only traditional teaching, my mother failed the test that they used to give in those days, which was they have to put a hand over their ears to see if they were too old to go to school. So my mom was obviously too old, so she just quickly put her hand, not understanding what they were trying to find out, and then she failed the test to be able to take into the Western school. But her sister passed the test, so my Auntie Julie is a retired midwife, so she went to school, but my mother never did. She only had the traditional training. And I wonder what she would have become if she actually had the Western training to go with it.
Thank you. Could you explain exactly why you chose to come to Scotland?
Well, for me, as I said, it's because of marriage that I decided I have to come to Scotland with my husband, because I can say when we were dating, my mom was very sick. And this is not the only reason. Scotland's a beautiful place, but this one is key. I met my husband at a Scottish Caledonian Society. I can remember that it was a St. Andrew's Ball in Lagos, organized by the Lagos Caledonian Society. He was their honorary piper. So a friendship developed that eventually led into getting married. But before we were married, I took him to see my mom severally. And I wanted the traditional prayers because I knew my mother was dying. And my mother said, no, I'm not offering prayers until you answer my questions. So go and call this man, which is the white man from Scotland. And she got my brothers together and some relatives. And she goes, are you going to leave Nigeria and follow your husband since he said he's going to go back to his country? So at that point, I had to actually think about it. I'm going, okay, I've lived a bit in America. I've stayed in and out of England a little bit with my studies, but have not actually considered uprooting everything and actually moving to another country. So I looked at it and I said, yeah, I think I love him enough. Yes, I'll do that. She said, okay, now we'll pray. So the prayers went. So because she felt that if he wants so much from the beginning, and he's been honest enough to say he wants to go back to his country, that it is for me now to decide whether I want to go, continue the relationship or not. So if I didn't want to go, then I shouldn't encourage the relationship, because he will never be happy to totally stay in Nigeria. And I think because of me, he did 25 years. And I think he's done enough. You know, when he got to the point we had the late children, the twin Alison and Norman, he went, no, I have to go back. I want them to be brought up in Scotland. And I felt, I think, it's not too much to ask for. Alison Ebuseme and Norman Obulosa, I said it was a gift from God. And why not see Scotland? And if I'm going to start my life again, the earlier I start it, the better. So, and I'm fortunate enough that I felt I can still go to Nigeria. I mean, I'm not that poor that I can't buy a ticket when the home call, as we call it, which has come, actually did come, and I had to go to Nigeria during the COVID. I was just wanting to go back home to see my people in Africa. Even I'm British and I'm Scottish, but still the call came that I wanted to smell the forest, the rain, and the smell of the earth when the tropical rain falls, and then you see the animals come. Even we have a botanic garden I created before I left Nigeria, which is my other passion, is gardening. Maybe because I'm from a farming community. So I find gardening extremely relaxing, and I love to be with nature, to be with plants. And I love to see other animals operate in their own. I don't like the killings of animals. I like animals to be part of the society. And in this botanic garden, which is still existing in Lekki area of Lagos State, I made it very clear, anybody that kills an animal like a monkey or anything there, they get into trouble with Josephine. So then I bring my chief whip out, and I will not mind to take them to the police station. So far, so good. Because we are very close to the Conservation Foundation. So a lot of the monkeys come to us because we still have some of the old plants. We are one of the only properties in the whole area that had kept some traditional trees and plants that feed these monkeys. Maybe there are some things they need from it. So they still come to this botanic garden to come and take. It's a mini one. We have just about, not something close to an acre, They still come there to come and take some of these nuts, palm nuts and other leaves. So what I think is quite fascinating, because it's us that have driven them away from their habitat. And I feel for them. And so, yeah. I'm a mother and grandmother of lovely children. I've got 4 children before, and 2 children with my husband, Scottish husband, who are twin, a boy and a girl twin. My first child is Sophia, Pridi, and I have Natalie. She's an artist like myself, Pridi, and then I have Monty, Pridi. But if I want to even put their Isha name, they all have Isha name. But I won't do that today. Maybe in the next interview. Then I have Catherine. And then I also have this twin, Alison Eboseme, and Norman Obulosa MacLeod. And I have 2 lovely grandchildren, who Mia and Mason, and these are Monty's children. And I have a lovely, I would say, daughter-in-law, Nikki. And Nikki is absolutely a pillar, and I think she's doing very well for my son, Monty, and I'm very proud of all her achievements. And I would say thank you to her and all the support I've received from my family. I would say a big thank you to everyone. And looking forward to seeing them post-COVID.
Thank you. Would you tell me about your career now that you're in Scotland? What did you do first when you arrived here?
Okay, it was a culture shock when I got to Scotland, because when I was living in Nigeria, I must admit, I had a luxurious life when I look back. Although at that time I was ambitious. I was an ambitious businesswoman, but not aggressively ambitious, but I wanted to give back to life. And each business I did, I always felt that I needed to also give back. So since my parents did the same formula, we work extremely hard, but we give back, and we try to also push ourselves to achieve the next thing. And sometimes it's not very good because it's a burnout thing. I saw my mom burnt out at the end, because she wasn't particularly, I've been very lucky because I've been healthy, but she was born also not too healthy. So she had always been someone who had been sick each of the time. But yet she was extremely mentally determined to get to where she wants to be. And coming from that background, when I got to Scotland, I was with 2 children, and they were under 2 years old. We had come to christen them at some point at St. Paul's Church in Mogai. And my mother-in-law, unfortunately, had passed away, because I felt at one point my mother-in-law was here. Her children traveled around the world, and she was lonely. So I wished my mother-in-law was here to help me with the babies. So now she was gone. My father-in-law had gone 10 years before. And I was going, what am I going to do here? So I could see myself as a housewife. And for me, being locked up in the house, yes, I love cooking. I love plants. But for that to be my mission in life, I felt, no, that's not what I want to be. So I was a little bit, I'll say I was a little bit not too sure. But when I got here, I felt that first and foremost is to find where I could have someone to look after the children. Because for a long time, I could even imagine I wasn't able to even go and have my hair done. And going back to Nigeria wasn't an option, because something happened before I left Nigeria. My house burnt down 10 days before I left Nigeria. So 10 days before I left Nigeria, my house had burnt down, where if I had an option to go back, that's where I'll be going to. When I spoke to one reverend, Olajide of the Anglican Church in Nigeria, he said, maybe it's God's message that Scotland is for you. So I said, if that's the way God will message me, I was still carrying that upset with me. I think that's a little bit too harsh of a way to tell me to get away from Nigeria that I've done a lot for. But never mind. I had a lot of support, I would say. I was very grateful to a lady called Rona Hamilton. I met her at St. Paul's Church. I touched touched her and said, "Excuse me, where can we put children of this age?" I thought she had a child not too far from my age. And she goes, "Oh, there's a school called Baldanok Childcare." And the next day, I landed at Baldanok Childcare with my husband, and I'm going, "Yes," and they're ready to take the children immediately for 2 hours or 3 hours, I think from 9 to 12. And I just didn't know what to do with myself first. But I had to have a cup of tea, sit down with my legs up, what to do, dance, celebrate. What? So I think that started my process of settling in Scotland. When I got that help, that the children could stay somewhere, and it gives me time to think about, Josephine, what do you really want to do? Remember, my business in Nigeria is still there in a skeletal way. It has to be, because I wasn't able to sell all my properties. So that was still hanging on my head. And the fact also was that I had to get my British passport sorted. I had my stay at that time, but I couldn't get my passport because I hadn't done my time. I had to do the stay, as they call it, and also pass my English exams. New rules and regulations have been put in place after I got married. And so I had to do all the government wanted for me to be able to get my British passport. So that would require me to have been in the United Kingdom for 2 years plus. And also I thought, I can't drive here. I haven't got a driving license. So I had to also learn to drive properly on the left side, and also to drive, in Nigeria you can drive in the aggressive way. So I have to learn to drive properly, I said, which means to drive in a nice passive way and obey rules and regulations. So not that I said I wasn't obeying them before, but you can easily overlook certain things in Nigeria and toot the horn, all the time. But now they said, no, you don't do that. So I decided, go properly, get a driving instructor. So I got a driving instructor, and it was really interesting that he was able to get me to pass it the second time around. The first time around, I was so nervous, and there was no way I couldn't have failed it, because I just panicked. I couldn't even move the car when they were telling me go left or right, and I knew I deserved to fail it because I wasn't relaxed enough. But the second time around, I passed it. Then the progress of, okay, now that you've got this in place, you've got your British documentation, you've got that in place. But before I got my British documentation, I started working on the charity. I thought to myself, how do I combine the art? I brought some artworks from Nigeria. So, and I've all over the world, everywhere I've traveled, I've always collected an artwork. It's one of my weaknesses. So I now felt, how do I combine this with giving back, with also enhancing my own self and my own development? So the journey started. I went to Calumet to try and learn more about photography. I did some other photography course with Jessup, and I started putting things in place to augment myself and get myself prepared to be in Scotland. And I started enjoying meeting people, and I remember my older sister came to see me, and I sought advice from her and said, I want to do a charity. And I have one in Nigeria, but everything in Nigeria operates differently from here. In a way, some things are similar, but people are different. So she advised me to volunteer first. Give people your own personal time. It's not all about giving cash. It's about giving yourself your time, and you learn. You get to meet the people, the real people, the indigents, because the charity I wanted to do was charity that benefited the indigents of Scotland. Because in my culture, that I was brought up in Africa, you first pray to the land you come to. The land accepts you, and then you give back to that land first. Then from there you can say, the land, I've done all this, I'm part of you now, but I left some people back home in Africa. What can we do to help them too? That's how it goes. So that's the process I took. So I started my volunteer work with Gavis Mill, the Fair Trade Center. I met some friends there who are still my friends right now. So I started meeting more people. From the church, St. Paul's Church, I met Rona, and from Rona I met other friends. And from Baldanok School, I became friends with the teachers, and I started gardening for the children and teaching them gardening, and I still do that till today. So, so I started developing myself that way. I started having more confidence in my photography because now I knew, okay, I used to love to take pictures, but now I know, okay, if I take it this way, it's technical. If I do it that way, so I know I can play around more with my confidence of my creativity. And I started looking at world in a different way because Scotland is beautiful. There's a lot of similarities I started noticing between the Scottish culture and the African culture, between the Scottish people and the African people, because I like the Scottish smiles. I like the warmth. I like when you meet somebody and they're ready to talk to you. That is excellent about the Scottish people, and I don't want them to change that because that's very attractive to someone like myself who is from the African heritage. Because in Africa, you can't say you are lonely. Even if you are depressed, you can just talk to somebody on the street and even say something nasty to them, they say it back to you, and that's it. You've said it, and then you become friends, you know. So I like that bit. And the process of starting the charity, getting to meet the people, understanding the people more, had absolutely helped me in coming to terms with, this is my home, this is where I want to die, this is where I want to live. I love this place, you know, and I absolutely, enjoy being in Scotland, and I absolutely enjoy the Scottish people. I love people from all around the world. I wouldn't say that, but being they are I'll say they are the indigents and the host, and they've accepted me, and I'm very grateful to them. And I'm also very grateful to United Kingdom because I have a lot of friends from other parts of the United Kingdom who are also very nice to me. So it's been a very good home for me, and it's been happy. You know, since I've been here, I could find myself going from, oh, what am I going to be? Is this the end of the world? To, oh, at least I have ups and downs. The pandemic time was particularly difficult for someone of my character because I grew up as a shy child, but later I now start having my voice. I like to meet people, I like to talk to people. So I found that very quiet times when a lot of my friends are in isolation. And unfortunately, some of them are still in isolation. They still won't come out of themselves. And it saddens me to see my friends, you know, who have now gone into themselves and will not come out. So I pray that, you know, they have the confidence to go back to live life because we only have one life to live. But still, the pandemic was a hard time for all of us, and that's why my charity now is concentrating more on mental health. We're trying to look at how to use art to enhance well-being and to help mental health. So that's at the stage we are right now.
Would you tell me more about the artwork that you are involved with to promote mental health?
Yeah. What I have been experimenting with to promote mental health is the traditional methods of mental health promotion in Africa combined with the Western art also. You remember I mentioned that my family are from the families of healers. My middle name is called Oboh. Oboh is a native doctor. So we are native doctors, which are medicinal and psychiatrics. So in Africa, it's all combined together. Well-being, psychiatry, psychology, counseling. So the native doctor takes all that with mixing of herbs to heal wounds, injury, coughs, anything, cancer, breast cancer, you know, even difficult birth, infertility. That's all the jobs of the native doctor. So both my grandparents were practicing native doctors, apart from all the other things they did. My mother's father was the first elected councillor in his own village in Emu Kingdom, in Ahiome. You know, in Emu Kingdom, he was the first elected councillor, as they say, alleged he is. But he was also a very good drummer, very good dancer, a very good musician, but an excellent native doctor, which was part of the reason I mentioned earlier on. It's so sad that so many medicines are lost because we didn't have this camera on my grandfather to give and show the herbs that he mixed together and what quantities that he used to save so many lives. he was alleged to have saved so many lives, and very complicated ailment he was alleged to have cured. So what we're doing now is I'm looking at the symbols, because my mom used to use symbols a lot. And these days we find the symbols in some of our fabrics, African symbols. And the symbols are supposed to, when you either wear them or you use them in terms of paint them, or you paint them, we call them urami. Urami is like painting in Esan language. Near, especially to the New Yam Festival, when we have the harvest, it's normally about October, November. My mom won't have eaten the new yam until the ceremony is done, because she is a high priestess from that area. So she's a priestess of the water. They call it Oloku. So she won't have eaten the new yam. So before then, she will start the healing process, which allows her to go into the next year, because our year is lunar years. We still practice it in Esan land, but although we do it alongside the Western calendar. But the lunar year starts from a Friday and ends on a Friday. So we count our market days. Market day, a prayer day is on Friday. That's a prayer day, and it's also a market day. They go to the market early in the morning. In the afternoon, they do the prayers. Then on Sunday, it's a rest day. It's called Edeze. Edeze is a day of rest, but it's a 5-day counting, the way they count it. So the Edeze falls on what will be our Friday, that's the rest day. And then 2 days before that, we would have had our market day and our prayer day. But apart from all that, she used to paint symbols around the house. And that painting, she would spend hours relaxing, painting those symbols. And I'll be watching her, and she'll be singing. Sometimes she'll also be chanting and poetry, because I could see her even saying poetry and saying things like that to herself. Eventually, one day, we went to the village, and there was a lady with some symbols using white chalk, the native chalk, to paint on her face. And everybody were going, congratulations, congratulations. And I'm going, Mom, why congratulations to that woman? You don't know her. She said, oh, she just said in that symbol that she's had a child who's had a baby, and they've had some baby boy. So we're all congratulating her. Don't you see she dressed with her best clothes? I'm going, oh, so those symbols mean something. She said, definitely, it means something. Before the European came, we had our own way of talking. And if she wears a symbol that shows she's angry, people know she's angry, and they will immediately go, why are you angry? Who have upset you? And they'll start counseling her not to be angry. That's how it was done. So if you want to send a message to the community, why are you doing this? You are allowed to send the message through the symbols you paint on your house, or you carve, for those that can carve, or whatever way you want to do it. So I felt that maybe if I incorporate these symbols into the art, because some African artists have it in a lot of their art and our textiles, but most of us don't know what it even means. We that are using it, we just go, oh, these are African symbols. Okay, let me copy it, and it looks good. But part of it is the symbols might be attracting you because it's a healing symbol. It's healing you. So what I do now with workshops, we do workshops. We did one in Tweka not too long ago. We worked with the symbols. After we worked with the symbols, we now created artworks with the symbols, giving messages. So it depends on the message on that particular day. We wanted to send love. So we picked symbols that said love, and then we used that during that time to relax ourselves. Whether it's giving us any vibes or not, the idea of us communally creating this artwork and staying there together with that spirit, I believe is healing. And that we then went home, we did this, some of them in tie and dye. Then we went home with our tie and dye, playing with colors, because the art part of it is we played with colors. We now decided I might put in blue or green. So what I did, I brought something that was very bright, like a Marrakesh that had all the African colors, the very bright colors, which I find in the Scottish Celtic paintings are there too. So we picked those colors and we made our tie and dye materials, different tying methods, and we used those colors. Combined with the symbols, I believe it improved our well-being, because when we got home, we had something to look forward to. We had to wash this, look at it. After we wash it, we open it, we look at it, and even the things that we've drawn with our symbols, we got one of the ladies to put it together for us to make a language. So all of us looking forward to all this, thinking about it, removed our mind from our depression or whatever we're thinking about, because we're thinking of something positive, a communal energy that had come together to create something that is telling people about the love we want to share, especially with the things going on in Ukraine at the moment. We felt it was a good time for us to share world love, to see communities come together of different characteristics of people to send love. I thought that was a very powerful method. So that's what my charity is now experimenting and trying to improve on, bringing in Western techniques, talking with Western artists, bringing in some of the African techniques we know of, and putting them together as a way of enhancing our well-being. And this particularly, this year, we've been happy and lucky that last year we started, before the COVID or just during the pandemic, we got a funding from the National Lottery Community Fund. We're very grateful to them. But we were supposed to do something in Kekintilok, but unfortunately the pandemic stepped in and the town hall was closed, and we couldn't liaise anymore with the local council that we're supposed to team up with. So, but luckily they allowed us to have it done in Mulgai. So we used some of this method, which combines art, different form of art. As I said, my mom used to do the poetry, she used to do the dancing, they would do the drumming, then they would do the drawing, then they would do even the food, because they like everything mixed together. It's what they say creates that wholeness of well-being. And that's what we're trying to do. So we did some things like that in different venues in Mulgai. It was extremely successful. So this year we went back again to say, okay, let's try to do Kekintilok and Mulgai again. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And we've had some very, very good time. And we felt that maybe we should do it a bit more structured too, by involving organizations as Alzheimer's Scotland, who obviously have done a lot of research in the well-being of dementia and Alzheimer. And we felt that it's also good for us to add that to our own methods and have a family day combining the Western art, the African art, the music, the dance, and then the colors. And we're trying to create this society which is all inclusive, because even one thing I will say in my experience, because I said I started volunteering from Gavis Mill, eventually I landed in the care homes. One experience I didn't quite enjoy was some of the unfortunate people in the care home, which might be me tomorrow, who didn't have visitors, the way they are so lonely. That upsets me a lot, because in Africa, no matter how old you are, we revere we worship you, even if you don't have, you have dementia or something is not quite right, because part of aging, we can't expect the brain not to be part of the body. So part of aging, as our body is aging, our brain will age too. So we feel that there have to be more inclusiveness of these aged people who have done their time. They have done their time. They've given their dues. So we have to find a way that even when we're doing things, we have to carry them along. We know, yes, it's not very convenient. They might be repeating themselves or whatever it is. We have to try our best so that they are not so lonely. So, and what other thing that had touched me too was the massive increase in autism, acute hyperactive deficiency syndrome. And so many families that I know also hiding it, that their children have it. Most, as they say now, from the people that know about this stuff, the experts, they say at least 4 in a class now has it. So we're also thinking that these are also children, 4 in a class, that was going to grow up to be adult and future leaders of tomorrow. So why don't we also do inclusiveness for these children? let us start from the beginning. Include the grandma, grandpas, those in care home, those in home, at home by themselves, which was what we did last 2 weeks in Fraser Center. We had the people with dementia that were living at home by themselves, and some of them, from what I hear, have not been out of the house for 2 years. They are still so afraid. We had them, and we had those that were in care homes. They met together for a beautiful afternoon of art and well-being and dance, and music. And I was so touched. Especially, even there was an old woman who was probably in her 90s who said they should pull her wheelchair, and they started dancing with the wheelchair, and then she had her hand up. And I was so touched as to the happiness that radiated from the room, and I feel that's part of healing. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to see how we can bring in some of the African symbols and some of the things that we know that our forefathers used for healing, which is now becoming extinct because most people don't know it. It's not being passed down. And then we'll see if we can also merge it with some of the beautiful things in Scotland and some of the beautiful research that have been done by, as we say, autism societies and the Alzheimer's societies, and see if we can move humanity forward in a small way.
Josephine, that's all fascinating. Can you tell me whether you have any future plans for JOM charity?
Yes, my future plans is that we continue what we're doing, and part of it is recording this interview, which records what we have been doing in terms of our tradition, what I've been doing in Scotland, and what other people are doing. So I want JOM Charity to continue to do that, and at the same time promote art, culture, and tourism, cross-tourism eventually, hopefully, between Africa and Scotland. And we want to be able to promote a lot of the good things about Scotland. But still, I believe the key is always mental health and well-being. If you're well, it's when you'll enjoy all the tourism, isn't it? So we want people to be well, we want them to be healthy. So we'll continue to do things that will promote that for people. And we'll continue to spotlight the way we can use the varied cultures that are now in Scotland. Like now we have even an event that will be coming up, hopefully, when we are exhibiting this. We're trying to see if we can get some other international people with it. So there's a lady from Iraq who wants to showcase some of the Iraqi culture. So why not? She's been in Scotland. She's done her time here, and she has something to say about where she comes from originally. But she's now not going back. Her children are here. They will not go back. But it's still good to see what that is. Can that be incorporated into some of the African things? So we all should have our open mind, because we are here now. We can learn from the Asians. We can learn from the Iraqis. We can learn from the Scottish. We can learn from other Africans. And we can see how we can enhance our life. I think that's where JOM will be focusing on. But I think JOM will continue to look at more into the general well-being, because all this enhances well-being, and that will be what will continue to be, is promoting art, culture, and well-being, and at the same time looking at other things. My suggestion for next year is going to be well-being and environment. So how do we combine art, well-being, and environment? So if we have an environment where there's climate change, it's not going to be helping us much, and our anxiety is not going to be doing well for us. So why don't we look after our environment to reduce our anxiety about our planet and our future? So that's the next year's project. That's where we're going. It's same relates to everything. Anxiety relates to how our mental health is also. So we're looking at, what's causing autism? Is it the environment? Why the high, are we sure it's not something coming from the way we live? Can we improve the way we live to improve the life? Or could we improve the life around the surroundings of an autistic child? Or to improve the well-being of the child to make everybody happier and make the society happier? So those are the type of things that JOM Charity wants to continue to promote, the questions of how do we enhance? Even if we enhance a little bit, I believe we would have been helping to create a better world. And that is what, to me, is very important, to give a little bit to the world than take everything and not give back anything. I think that's not a good way to be. I believe that, as I said earlier, to whom much is given, much is expected. And even if nothing has been given to you, just being born alone, it means that you've come to breathe air from the environment. So you should give back something to that environment. So I believe that that is very important. So that's where Jump Charity is going, and we'll hope to work with other people and see if we can also work with charities with similar minds, so that way we can all grow together and also work with, as I say, primarily the indigents of Scotland, and then see from there we can grow and start helping other nations, including Africa, where is my other route comes from. So that's it. And looking at it all too, I decided to also look at other hats, because when you're looking at future, you wonder what are the rules and regulations that are governing the country that is affecting Jump Charity to do its work. And one of the key things that we found was a lack of funding. Lack of funding have destroyed so many charities and so many people that can help. You know, if not of the National Lottery and the Museums and Galleries Scotland right now, it's very difficult for charities like ourselves to survive. And if you don't have anything coming in, how can you help people? It won't be possible, because everything costs something. And if a volunteer cannot pay their transport, how can they come and help you when they can't even pay their transport or eat when they get back home? So all these questions is where the issue of governance come in, and which have led me into recent politics. And governance means that we can't ignore governance, because governance brings us money. I remember when I wanted to do the event with the East Dunbartonshire Council, I was promised £200. And I'm sure that right now I won't be promised any money, because there's no money. The funding cut is so bad. So that's another struggle that Jump Charity needs to do, which is the awareness that there have to be support for charities and agencies that are keeping the culture. Like this, recording this event now costs something, and that person needs to be looked after, because without recording the event, how do the future people know what has gone on in the past? If our past did not record what they've done, we don't have anything to see in the museums. So it is our duty to have a budget for that. So I look at that, and that leads me to what I term to be humanitarian politics. Politicians have to have human. There have to be, that awareness that looking after people is very important. Not, playing lip service to people's mental health is very important. Creating community centers that work, where the elderly, the middle-aged, women, men, children, the handicapped, underprivileged can go to, guaranteed that once in a month or a few times a month they can have a happy time, as they used to do in the village. And also here in this country, there used to be more garden parties with neighbors inviting each other. But where are those now? It's all gone. So we have to try and find other social ways, so that we are a social animal, the human beings, to support this. So that means that our politicians have to wake up and also start helping the people, not just lip service. Not lip service. And that is the reason I believe that if it goes that you don't know what is going on, it's better that a few of us join them, so that we can ask questions. Those that have a heart can ask what's going on. And if there's enough number asking questions, we will ensure whatever little money we have in the country is diverted and divided correctly, so that everybody in the country benefits. and not for just only the rich. Yeah, that I can still put on record, because because I believe that people have to be diverse. Everybody can be in the same political party. If there's a party that's deemed to be a problem, some of us have to join them to know what's going on and fix the problem eventually. But if we leave them alone, no matter what the party is, that's why in the Nigerian community, I encourage everybody to go to whatever party suits their mind. I have friends who are in the SNP, friends who are in the Labour, friends who are in Lib Dem, friends who are in Alba now, and friends who decide I will never join a political party, it's too rotten for me. But they are still my friends. But still, I would say that don't leave them alone, even if it's a conservative or any party. You go in there, you can't change people overnight. I know that, because that would be stupid of me to think, oh, I'll go in there and I will just uproot everybody. But you go in there as an example to say, this is who I am. This is my expectation. You are holding something that belongs to all of us, which is true. They are holding the power. And the power belongs to the people. So you have to use it correctly. And where are you using it correctly? Are you helping everybody? The underprivileged, the BAME people, the indigents, the different sectors of the society? What formula do you have that you are using to touch everybody? That is the reason why I believe we have to be all in different places, because some people are more skewed to, oh, I support industry, then you support labor. Then I support the and nationalism. Then you support the SNP. Then I support, let's say, conservatism. People think that it's supposed to be, I am the boss and I am a conservative. I keep the money and I don't spend it. I don't believe that it is, because I read the manifesto. It doesn't say that. It says that everybody should be supported. And why is it not like that? So we ask the questions. It has to be. So somebody, are you not doing your job? That is what you said. So, but if we are not pointing all these things out to all the politicians, including myself, if somebody is not pointing out, Josephine, you're not doing right, Josephine, you're not doing this, then I don't think it's correct. And that's also the freedom I like about the way I grew up. Because in Africa, we are allowed any religion we want, apart from when they now brought the jihad. And that's the difference between being all this called Muslim, you must be a Muslim or you are killed. I think that's wrong. I believe as human being, I like that freedom to decide I don't want to any religion, I want to be myself. Or let them convince me, then I'll go to church. Or let them convince me, I'll go to the mosque. It's the person's choice. It's a person's life. So I like that freedom, to do that. And for me, I was extremely disappointed in Scotland when I got my life threatened because I joined the Conservative Party. And somebody said they'll kill me. And I said, why will you kill me? I got a very, very important exhibition, which was supposed to be exhibition of black women living in Scotland. It would be the first ever, cancelled on me because I joined the Conservative Party. And I thought that's wrong, because this particular person, I already knew the biases of some of them, and I was their friend for years before I decided, let me pitch with where they say change can be made. Because that's what we're looking for. We want change. We want things to be better. We want to work together and make the world a better place. Nobody is saying, I'm not trying to convince anybody, leave your party to join me. I'm trying to say, we can make change here. Let's read what is supposed to be, how it's supposed to be done. And let's see if they are doing it correctly. And if they are not, let's change the law. Let's fight for the law to change so it's done correctly. So money goes to the right places. So people are looked after. So funding is available. So we have a better life in our time. But I was very disappointed when some people took it overboard. And I felt, this is what I would expect in Africa, where some people are beheaded because of their beliefs. I said, no, this is a country that is democratic. I agree that a lot of people can do their stuff. And I actually I'm very proud of the outcome eventually, although I didn't win this time. But I'm very proud of the outcome in Kekentilok, East North and Tweka, and they now say Waterside. Why? I had over 600 people who voted for me, straight votes. And I felt that these are 600 human beings who believed in me. And then I also had over 200 or so, or 100 and something votes as second votes and third votes or fourth votes from other party members. And I was very incredibly proud of it to say, wow, somebody thought about me, Josephine, and thought about the party and said, okay, let me give, okay, altogether going on to 800 votes. But these are 800 human beings who are indigents, because these are not, in Kekentilok, it's not Antweka, it's not a black area. So it's mostly indigents. And for me, I felt that even if I'm no longer in politics, even if I'm no longer doing anything, which I still intend to see about the welfare of the people, I should try my best to live a life that helps the people, either in East Dunbartonshire, in Scotland, in United Kingdom, or the world as a whole. Whether it's politics I'm doing, whether it's charity I'm doing, whether it's business I'm doing, I should always have at the back of my mind the people at mind, in my heart, to say, it's not all about money. It's about the people, because the people make the world. The children are our future. There's only very few times I'm here to live. Before you know it, it's over. And I can see it ticking. I'm already over 50. So where I've come from, I'll be very lucky to make another 50 years. Extremely lucky. That's why I'm so proud also of the Queen. She's tried 85 years, 75 years, 95 years. Time just goes. So I'm really proud. And that's why we say, let's respect the elders that have done their time. It's not easy to get to that age. It's a journey. And the journey sometimes can be very tough.
Just moving away from politics and royalty and all that kind of thing, could I just bring you back to your own artwork? Could you tell me a bit more about that, please?
Yes. I like to paint when the spirit moves me, and most of the things that move my own artwork is nature. And I also like people. So I have done even a portraiture which I call the African Queen, and it was auctioned at the Nelson Mandela Foundation a couple of years ago. I'm working now on a mix of photography and painting, and also mixed media types things, which was supposed to be exhibited last year, but unfortunately the COVID postponed it, and hopefully we might be exhibiting it in London this year. So, but what I'm trying to do now is to use the symbols I've been telling you are the healing symbols, and the symbols that's asking questions about humanity. Because personally myself, although I've lived a reasonably very happy life, I'm very thankful to my husband and my children and everybody for giving me, and my sisters and my family for giving me a reasonably happy life, and my friends and even people that I don't know. But I feel that a message has to be sent. The world can be better. So I'm asking questions about the past. You know, we look at the past and we say, our forefathers, we can do better than them. But you find that even the washing machine then is better than the one now. It works better. It never breaks down. You know, and the honesty of some of them. And I met a lady at the Fraser Center. She knits beautiful teddy bears for everyone. So this lady now tells me, oh, I know your mother-in-law. And I'm going, oh, do you? Oh, she taught me in school. I said, really? Oh, well, do you know what she taught us? She was a gym teacher. So in those days, they teach us how to dance. Cha-cha-cha. And she started doing the dance steps. I just couldn't believe it. I'm going, so this education we have now is substandard compared to what these people enjoyed. You know, and when she described her own life and the way the boys were lined one way, the girls were lined the other way, they taught them what they call social dancing. How many of our children know how to do social dancing these days? You know, and I felt that was a good one. Then why did they drop it? That means most children are so shy. to meet anybody, can't even to look you in the eye. That was a very good way to introduce dancing to children, and this lady still had the step, even now that she's in her 70s, going on 80. And I was really impressed. So my artwork, that is the type of expression. I would like to get this woman dancing in my artwork one of these days and have her possibly with some symbols asking about what had happened in the past and looking at the future. What will our children be doing, or should we reintroduce some of these beautiful things that we've lost, in our education, in our culture, in everything we do, even the food. Like for me, I live in Scotland, but sometimes I have the home call asking me to eat Nigerian food. I was craving for plantains. I just couldn't have enough time to go to the shop. A few weeks ago, I went to the shop to buy plantains, and I made 3 different foods with the plantains. I fried the plantain. I made what they call a pottage, which had beans, spinach, yams. You can use potatoes if you want, and I put the plantains in. I didn't know what else to do with the plantain. I said, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to make a plantain steamed. They call it ukpo. So plantain powder and plantain mashed, I made a plantain steam pudding. And that reminded me of my mom. As the pudding was going through my nose, all the memories of the red sand road in my village, because we have red road, it's all mud, this red clay-like, that's how it is. But funny enough, as clay-like as it is, it's a very fertile part of the forest. So it reminded me of it, and that reminded me of dance and music. A few days later, they called me from the village, and they go, oh, 2 things. One is good news, and one is extreme bad news. I said, okay, start first with the bad news, then you give me what's the good news. Okay, the bad news is that they are now harvesting the organs of the farmers in my village and of the poor ladies who go to the farm to help their husband. They are raped, some of them beheaded, organs taken out of them and exported to allegedly countries like India, Singapore, and China. That's the allegation. And I'm going, that's serious allegation. And they're going, they sent me a picture of a farmer who had his tongue removed, alive. And it's been exported. And they are used for transplant. And that's the latest. It touched me. I'm here. What can I do? I called my sister in Nigeria, Mabel, who travels around, and she was the governor candidate for Edo State a few years ago in the last elections. What can we do? She said, it's only awareness. It is true. The journalists are talking about it. That's what's going on. We can't even go home. I am not allowed to go home because my relatives can't even guarantee my safety. That beautiful forest where I used to have my foot on the ground, I was barefooted and I enjoyed it. The touch of the grass and the sand, which influences my painting. Even there's a painting from Imoisi I have in my studio that is of the forest. I will exhibit it in the next exhibition when we exhibit this story we are having now. And that beautiful forest with a stream that leads to River Niger. And River Niger also, if you look at that forest, was discovered by who? A Scotsman from Selkirk, Mungo Park. So if you see the history that leads between that River Niger, that my river in Uto in Emu goes to River Niger. And in those days, the Scotsman discovered the River Niger first. Then we live all through the life, and then a few years ago, we were paying lip service when kidnapping started. There was a lady I met yesterday at a conference in Edinburgh. She'd been one of the she was an eye optician who went with a Christian group, and she was one of those early kidnapped ones, and she was kidnapped in the Niger Delta. And she was telling her stories yesterday in Scotland. She's a Scottish lady. And when she was talking about her story, I just want to reach out to tell her, it's moved above that now. When it was happening then, we went, oh, it's happening to the whites. And some of our politicians, that's why I say politics sometimes, since they are governance, we must look at what they're doing. We're paying lip service to it. So now it's moved now to the indigents who can't even feed 3 square meals. They can't go to the farm. Our uncle called me a few days ago. He was starving. He hasn't eaten for 2 days. I had to send money from Scotland for him just to eat. But I'm not helping him. But he can't get to his farm. He cannot farm anymore. In those days, they used to get free yams from people coming for prayers. Now you have to have extra to be able to give somebody a free yam. So that's starvation, and people might migrate out of that beautiful forest for starvation and fear of their lives, because governance is not working. Security of life is not working. And when one look at it, it influences my painting. And you look at, it's so easy. Nobody can tell me. I can say that I was educated to master's level in this country, and my brain was developed in different traditional way and also Western way. You can't tell me in the age where we can put a drone into the forest, sit in the United Kingdom, we cannot pinpoint who is in the forest killing people. So the government have no excuse for a nation as rich as Nigeria. No, there's no excuse. Because we could easily get the professionals, even the CIA, even the Scotland Yard, give them the right money because we have the money to do it. And then let them beef up our security. Put the drones in. We will see the rich person doing this organized crime. They said this alleged Fulani headsman. How can a headman be able to arrange a flight for an organ that's just been taken, that needs refrigeration, and needs to be flown to a hospital, and needs somebody waiting for it for a transplant, and somebody has sold that organ illegally to somebody? Is that fair? So these are the questions that my paintings from now on will be asking. And I want the future generations to know that some of us did not agree. Just as I've been accused, even by some, even in Scotland and also in America, not the Scottish people, but I've been to some Black History Month events where I was accused of, even during that Black History Month, somebody from Nigeria actually that I know sent me a message to say, I'm a MacLeod. So my husband was a slave trader and his family. And I wrote back to him to say, even if it had happened, that was what happened in the past. There was slave trade before even the white people joined the slave trade. You know, nobody can tell me about what happened because I read it. My father gave me the books. They gave the historical data. Some of our people participated in it. So if you want to point your fingers, as you point one, this four is pointing at you. There's a lot for us Africans to answer. So because I married a MacLeod doesn't make me marrying a slave trader, you know. And even if the grandfather was a slave trader, I think there should be forgiveness. That was how they knew up to. So we should move forward. You know, we are now no longer in slave trade. We can use whatever our knowledge now to better the world. So let's look at building a better world and stop dwelling in the past. So now that we're looking at people closing their eyes and allowing other people's organs to be used, is even worse than slave trade because we're in modern age. And we have the technology that we can, if we don't have in Nigeria, that we can buy, that can help us to fish out these bad eggs who are doing something so barbaric to their own human beings. Not to talk about what they would do to the forest. There was a gentleman who came to interview me in the studio talking about Benin bronzes. They must be returned because they are looted. So I remember giving different options, and I could see that some people don't agree with my options. But that's democracy for you. Where the bronzes are being taken to is where they are killing people and harvesting organs and raping their children and wives and killing their wives in front of them, and all type of barbaric thing going on right now. Bronzes have been taken. I think one of the universities here have returned some. And who is going to look at those bronzes now? Are they of any value to anybody when you can't even go there and look at them? When the security of lives have not been able to be saved, is it Benin bronzes that can be saved? So those bronzes have gone now, and then one day a looter comes with his AK-47, and that's it. It's gone forever. Would it somehow not have been better that it stayed in the museum where all of us have access to? And that even if the museum is paying rental for the bronzes and some of our children are given scholarships to study with it, or some hospitals are built, we don't have care homes for our elderly, not sufficient ones at all in any of the states in Nigeria. That's why my uncle cannot eat now and I have nowhere to place him. I cannot tell him, oh, the government will have the care home for me to arrange for my uncle to be in. So, should we not look at those ways to provide extra social care for our people? Could it come from renting those bronzes instead of taking them back into where you can save life? Those are questions my paintings want to ask, that my photography want to ask, that my expression, I want to express in different medium. And I think that the other medium that is very powerful that we cannot ignore is digital. Being able to do what we're doing now and recording this video. Could we use the video and add painting to it and text and come up with an art form that is futuristic? That is where my mind thinks. That is where my art wants to go. But whether I can achieve it in my lifetime, I don't know. But that's what I want to encourage. Yeah, I mentioned having this inspiration for artwork, that for this new generation, I feel that we should also embrace digital art. So I'm now experimenting with combining photography, digital art, text, African symbols, sending messages, and using parables and sayings to send message with my new painting. So I'll give you an example, just show it through to the camera of what I mean. And this one is talking about the child from the forest, just like me, who'd landed in the Western world, in my imagination, coming from the forest, landing here. Did she succeed? Is she happy? What is she going to give back? The voyage, coming here, is she going back home? Will she stay? Does she feel recognized? Does she have all the things we've been talking in this interview? It's all the questions I'm asking. So those are the new type of art. You could see the second one is the same thing, and it's the same using digital art, my photography. This photograph was actually done in my studio in Mogai. Yes, I've taken by myself. Photography, including the photograph I did when I traveled to Africa. So, and then including the text and the questions, and finishing it off, eventually my next step is to add the symbols, which says this text, so that when other Africans that can read symbols see it, or other Western people who are now being able to read symbols, they know what I'm trying to say, and it adds to the whole. So that is where my art is going.
Thank you, Josephine. I think lastly, I would like to ask you, how strong do you think the presence of African art and culture is in Scotland today?
What I would say is that it's unfortunately not strong enough. I was very saddened by the closure of the African Art Center. I don't know whatever went around it, but I felt that an art center like that, which was dedicated to African art, if run correctly, would portray Africa and allow people of African descent a sense of pride of where they can say, you can see our ancestry and the work of our ancestry, or the type of work of our ancestry here. I would say my relationship with the African Art Center actually started from Lamb Hill Stables. I had gone from Baldanok playgroup where my children were, and the lady who ran the school then, I remember Margaret telling me that there's a gentleman who is an artist, and he worked with Lamb Hill Stable, Ade Aibinu. So I went to see Ade Aibinu. He actually told me, oh, there's an African center in Glasgow. I was excited. I was saying, wow, that's good. So he gave me the contact details of Chief Amu. And I eventually met Chief Amu about a year later, and I told him of my own dream of setting up my little art and culture place. And I felt that that would be good. So I went to the museum too, to check what was available at the museum, and I saw that they only have one work of Africa in the whole of the museum from an unknown artist who is from the Edo area where I come from, because his name is actually Oboh also, or DJ Oboh, I can remember. So I looked at the work. It was extremely detailed, really lovely work, good representational work from that area, but still it's not enough. It's just one. Then I then went, when they had the Black History Month, I decided that, okay, I'm going to go to the museum in Italy, the storage, and there are some very beautiful work donated by what they would call some of the colonials that had traveled to Africa. And some of them worked in Africa and some were missionary, including David Livingstone. So I saw some beautiful beads and stuff and history behind some of them. Girls who wanted to be Christians, taking away their beads, gifting it to David Livingstone and his some of the people with him, and he brings it to Scotland and is hiding in Italy. And I felt, no, this history has to be out there. No matter what people agree, did she change her bead for Christianity? No. Whether she did or not, the fact that this colorful, beautiful bead is there needs to be in the public eye. I asked that day, there was a lady who was curating, and I think she mentioned retiring at that time. She mentioned that she has an exhibition that she's up to in a couple of months. So I actually went to the exhibition. I was extremely impressed. The exhibition was really lovely. It was at the museum and galleries in Scotland, in town. And it was beautiful, the Kevin Grove Museum. She had over a room and it just radiated the beauty of Africa all put together in one place. I remember there was a designer from Ghana and they had a mannequin dressed beautifully. And I said, if they can do it, they can do it. Why don't they have a room that is African? They can do it. And it was so beautiful. It gave me a sense of belonging. I felt, yes, Scotland is also looking at us Africans and respecting our heritage, respecting some of the histories and the difference in our dance. Like like for me, in where I come from, we have the Igbabonerimi, which is the unusual dance that we do. You know, remember I told you during the time they told me there was a good news and bad news. Bad news, they are killing us. Good news, the society have decided they won't stop the culture, that they are going to still perform the New Year festival this year. So they wanted my contribution that I normally contribute for the first outing of the masquerade. So, and they've done it last Sunday and it was fantastic. So that means even within horrors facing us, life is still continuing. And I want that to be in the museum. All these stories to be here, to be told in Scotland. And that is why I am really, really thankful, you know, to Irene of the Kekentilloch Museum, the Altkirk Museum, for putting up an exhibition. They have an exhibition now of the weavers and knitters of Scotland. And they now put my own Esan land, especially, I'll say we are one of the most remote places in Nigeria. We are still living like crofters, you know, and they put the dressing of our people and they put some other part of Africa and they put a textile exhibition showcasing. For me, it gives me pride. And when I sent it to the forum in in Nigeria, they were so impressed. You know, they're going, oh, Scotland is really showcasing where our daughter, who have now adopted to become Scottish, is. You know, it gives a sense of pride, you know, and for me to say, yes, my Scottish people have put us up, and it's a sense of pride. So I think more needs to be done, because I had a privy to be part of a group called Young Afro, and in that group when they had an event, there was over 50 Black Africans of African heritage. And I feel that a lot of them were very surprised when I brought African symbols. And they didn't know anything about it. They had no clue. They were born here. They've never been home. And they will never go home. But they're Africans, answering African names, have my color, look like me. But when I talk to them, I find, no, these people don't know anything about Africa. Absolutely nothing apart from their name, which some of them don't even know the meaning of their name. You know, like my name, my native name is Ade Aibinu. Ade Aibinu means Oh, you don't go and look at people smiling at you. Some of them might not be happy with you. They are smiling, and they're deceiving you. Be careful. So it's my grandfather who died telling my father to be careful of life. Don't be trusting everybody. So that's the name I landed with. So there are different names. So when these people, I was asking them, what did you think Tolu means? And I didn't realize this girl is 35 years old. She's 30 years old. She's 28. She has absolutely no idea what her name means. She's even shocked. She thinks we're still jumping on trees. She's looking at me with an arrogance, actually, because they start out looking at me with an arrogance, as if they're above me. And then eventually, when they find out that this lady knows quite a bit, because I know a lot about the West, even maybe about Scotland more than them, because I bother to learn about Scottish culture. I bother to know about St. Andrews. I bother to know about Burns. I bother to know about Scottish dancing. I bother to hear Scottish music. I bother to see the sign and the symbols of Scotland and some of the stories and the music of Scotland. I bother. But a lot of them don't. So I now find that this is not complete. We need a gallery, a museum, which the government will support, because it will be very difficult for an individual to do this, that showcases all this history, especially the work that even Dr. Sue Morrison have done with a lot of African communities here. Put them all in one place. Add art. Let us have some art from the Knit Hill museums. They said even they have another museum storage somewhere, which is even bigger. So let's get some of those art out. Write what is behind some of them that we can remember. Get some Africans now who are still here. Someone like myself, I can be able to tell you the colors and what it meant and be able to say what I believe. If I don't know, I'll go and find out. Let's put some history to them. Those that can donate, like myself, I'm willing to donate some of my artworks. So let's bring out some good contemporary artwork there and create something that is cross-culture. That is not just African, but it's Afro-Celtic with other international countries. So it's a wholeness that involves not just BAME people, not just Africans, but has the Scottish element. So we all have a sense of belonging, because I am no longer a true 100% African. It's not possible. So I can never be to say I'm 100% Scottish. It's not possible. Too much heritage in the head, right? So why can't I use the good heritage, the good ones I bring here? The chauvinistic one I mentioned earlier, that some of them will not train the girl because she's a girl, we'll leave that behind. I have been at a function in Scotland where one of the African societies refused to serve me kola nut because I was a woman. And I tried to tell them, this is where we get into trouble. We don't have integration. You have to know the law. What you're doing is chauvinistic. You can do that back in your village, which I think you should start changing, but you can't do that here in Scotland. We have Theresa May at that time as the Prime Minister, and we also had Nicola Sturgeon as our First Minister in Scotland. We should respect these powerful women. You should not bring your barbaric, culture to Scotland. We leave that behind. Let's bring the music. Let's bring the dance. Let's bring the food. Let's bring the smiles. Let's bring the warmth. There's so much we can offer Scotland. So much. And let's do that. Luckily, I was invited recently to an international group of a female a few days ago. I was very proud of this group. They wanted to learn the law. We had women from Iraq. We had women from Africa. We had women from around the world, Switzerland and Scottish. So the Scottish ones were teaching us the law. They were telling us, you do this, there was even incidents of our African brothers who are now in jail in Scotland. Even some of them doing PhD and they end up in jail. Why? Because they go and date rape. They don't know it's illegal to date rape. They think it's in Africa, she was just trying to be difficult. No, it is against the law. You can't do that. So we are now preaching, which is what John Charity is doing, integration. Integration. You can't come to Scotland. First thing we learn, law, rules, regulations. Second, who are these people? We learn them, their culture. What is St. Andrews? What is this? What is that? We ask, how do they dance that? Okay, look at how we do ours. Then we try to bring them forward. We don't go, they don't greet us. then we don't greet them. No, we can greet them. By the time we greet them 100 times, they'll say, let me greet her back. And then we invite them to our event. Oh, let's go and try. That's how we all become an inclusive society. And that is why we believe that having a space that promotes our culture will better integrate us Africans in Scotland and also in the United Kingdom, because we are here to stay, our children are here to stay. We've decided to make this our home, and we want it to be our home. But we also want to bring the things that are good that we can bring, because a relationship is an exchange. We want to be allowed to bring the positive exchange that we can add to enhance Scotland. At the same time, we will also take back with us, even if some of us that want to go back home, the positive things we've learned. I will never forget the St. Andrew's Day. I met my husband that day. I will never forget the kilt. I will never forget the bagpipes. I will never forget haggis, nips, status. No, my people will never forget too, because when I get back home, I talk about it. So that's how the world becomes a smaller place. Looking at the future, what's the future for Drum Charity? I feel the future for Drum Charity is to look how to advocate an art and culture museum which involves Scottish art also, be an Afro-Celtic art with an international twist. So I think if we have that international element that brings everybody together, that is one of the things that Drum Charity wants to advocate for the future. And the next thing Drum Charity is also very passionate about, apart from our art and well-being and mental health, is having these care homes, advocating for care homes to have like the Scandinavian element, where young people, nurseries, kindergartens are built not too far from care homes, so there will be more interaction between this elderly that have paid their dues and the young ones. And the elderly can impact some of their knowledge to even the parents and also these young people. And these young people can also enjoy the company of these elderly people. So this African style, bringing the elderly and respecting them for who they are, it's one of the things Drum Charity want to advocate in Scotland and the rest of United Kingdom. And I see that maybe we'll also have a future interview where we can explore this and also interview the elderly people to see what else do they want and explore this nursery people. So I think that's something that Drum Charity would like to do in the near future. Thank you.
Josephine, that's all of my questions. Is there anything you would like to add?
Well, all I'll say is, I think to you, I'll say thank you very much, Dr. Sue Morrison. I have been privy to even seen the interview you've done before for the oral history and the Glasgow African Tales. I was very impressed. I quite like it. I have 2 copies of the books. I kept one in my studio, one at home, never to give away to anybody. I don't even loan it. So because it's very precious. I feel that people like yourself and the government, I think some government people are trying, but we just need a little bit more to be done. The museum at Kelvin Grove, the exhibition they did, I said, on African thing was a very good step in the right direction. I'm really proud of them. It was well done. I feel that such things should be done. There's a lot of us Africans, they have to realize, who are very marginalized here, some of us came with the impression that it's going to be easy, find it uneasy, sometimes looking for something to hold back to or something that is familiar to them. So if we have a space that allows us to feel that we are worthy, we are people, although we've migrated, it's going to be tough for a few years, we are ready to integrate properly, and this is also something that's showcasing what we do, I feel that would be very helpful to the settlement of Africans and to what Africans for future generation or people of African descent can give back to Scotland and United Kingdom. So I feel that the future should be bright for all of us if we all work together, and we should also, as Africans, as I was telling them too, bring some of those smiles, the dance, the music, and bring the joy of life, which is in all of us, and we bring those positiveness and those things that are negative, things like unnecessary circumcision that is wrong for the females, and things that you don't do, then don't do it because it's against the law, and try and work with the law, so that you can improve the lives of everybody. And also integration is what we are preaching now. Let's try and integrate properly and learn some things that are Scottish, and then also give back to the Scottish also, so that they can also enjoy some things that are good about us Africans. So that's what we are preaching, and hopefully, it's not a preaching, we're just suggesting. But I think hopefully if we all work together with the government and with like-minded people, as we call them, friends of Africa, and friends of the world, friends of BAME, friends of everybody, we work together, we'll make a better planet. What is important is the planet for all of us, even for the animals, which is my next project, save the animals, save the planet. And I think that will help our well-being.
Chief Josephine Oboh MacLeod, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really grateful. Thank you for putting this down. I'm grateful for future generations, and thank you to the National Museums and Galleries, Scotland. They are great. Good work they are doing. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.